Really, you are so insensitive and clueless. Can you hurry up and proceed with the divorce with Thomas? My in-laws always hurl abuse at me and make demands. And recently, the word divorce has started to come up frequently. Paula, you said something terrible and it made my mom cry. I care about my mom, so if you can't get along with her, I seriously think we should consider divorce. There's no way that mother-in-law cried because of me. Thomas casually lies about such clear falsehoods. I was fed up with it. Wait, why is everyone living in my apartment looking at me? You wouldn't think these are the same people who always talk about divorce. It's always the same pattern. They only bring up the word daughter-in-law when it suits them. Since you married into this family, you should take care of us, including finances and a place to live, because you are the daughter-in-law. I calmly responded to my mother-in-law's rude remarks. What? I'm not married? You know. Even they looked surprised. All three looked like deer caught in headlights, totally dumbstruck. What? What? I didn't say anything wrong because it was the truth. Meeting Thomas at a place where I was supposed to find happiness may have been my mistake. Was it fun for them to deceive someone like me? A naive and foolish woman in her 40s who mistook their feigned kindness for affection? They used me like a slave, demanding money. Had they ever seen such lowly figures reflected in the mirror? Their laughter sounded like the loud cackles of demons. I hope they continue laughing as they go to hell. I hope they suffer greatly. I will never forgive them. My name is Paula Miller, a 40-year-old housewife. Last year, in my late 30s, I married Thomas, whom I met at a matchmaking party. Invited by a friend of the same age, it was my first time attending such an event, and I was quite nervous. At the party, we had a short time frame to converse with each man. This was the perfect opportunity to showcase myself, but I was bad at talking. I struggled to find the right words and ended up wasting the time without making much of an impression. I might not be cut out for marriage. Just when I began to think this, the last person to appear before me was Thomas, who was the same age as me. Though not particularly handsome, his gentle demeanor and warm smile eased the tension that had built up. It's nerve-wracking to be here, isn't it? I'm not used to this either. Saying this, Thomas gave a shy smile. Other male participants were accustomed to these parties and would quickly throw questions, even within the limited time. I couldn't handle this well, and many men left sighing, moving on to the next woman. However, Thomas didn't bombard me with questions and listened attentively to my awkward words. I told him that I was homeschooled with few chances to interact with men and that my mother had raised me alone, expressing my desire to marry soon to reassure her. He listened to my story with a smile and nodded. For the first time at the very end, I felt comfortable. However, Thomas was popular, and during the free time, he was constantly surrounded by other female participants. There were many women here wanting to marry. I might miss my chance while I hesitate. Just as I gathered the courage to speak to Thomas, the bell rang to signal the end of free time. It's over. I didn't do anything. In the venue, those who became a couple received applause from everyone. As we were about to leave the venue, and while I was being comforted by the friend I attended the party with, an announcement came. Thomas and Paula Miller, you are a couple. Congratulations. Thinking it was my last chance, I had written Thomas's name under the man I was interested in. Surprisingly, Thomas had also written my name. Encouraged by my friend, who was even happier than I was, I headed to the stage. I want to spend more time with you, Thomas said, and I nodded vigorously. As applause filled the venue, we were officially established as a couple. Being considerate of the situation, my friend left first, and Thomas and I continued our conversation at a family restaurant. I also want to reassure my parents. Actually, I was also homeschooled, so I'm not sure how to interact with women. That's why, when I thought how similar we are, I became interested in you," Thomas said shyly. I grew even fonder of him as he spoke. Later, we talked about our favorite music and the activities we were involved in during our student days. Surprisingly, Thomas participated in theater in his high school days. I used to gather with friends who aspired to be actors, and we would film short dramas on our smartphones. Embarrassingly enough, I once had such dreams too. Thomas smiled shyly as he spoke. That was how Thomas and I met. From there, our relationship began. Since we met at a matchmaking party, our relationship progressed with marriage in mind. Soon after we started dating, I had the chance to meet Thomas's parents. Both were like Thomas, greeting me with kind and gentle smiles. I thought they might expect me to become a housewife once married, but neither Thomas nor his parents criticized the idea of me continuing to work. My mother lived far away, and I couldn't visit her often, but his parents were gracious and warmly told me not to worry about it. I learned that his parents had also pursued theater and had met in a drama troupe. Understanding that Thomas's aspiration to become an actor was influenced by them made sense. Looking back, I should have realized it then. I was completely oblivious to the fact that everything was just an act, and I proceeded to marry Thomas. That was the beginning of hell for me. I never had a father, and my mother worked tirelessly to raise me alone. Perhaps because of that, I strongly desired a warm family environment. After marrying Thomas, we rented a 2-bedroom apartment as our new home. Soon after moving in, my in-laws started to visit often, and we spent many enjoyable times together. As far as I can remember, it might have been the first time I ever felt the warmth of a family atmosphere. Not long after, when we visited Thomas's relatives to greet them, they seemed very surprised that he had gotten married. You know, I'm not good with women, right? My relatives were worried about that too. Thomas said this when he returned home. My relatives, too, must have wished for my mother to find peace of mind as soon as possible. Thinking about it, I felt truly fortunate to have met Thomas and married him. When I called my mother to tell her we had submitted our marriage registration, I could hear her crying tears of joy on the other end of the phone, and I felt relieved that I could finally repay her kindness. Paula, thank you so much for marrying Thomas. From now on, we are family, so please treat us like your own parents. My mother-in-law said this kindly, and I felt like I was about to cry. With a kind husband and in-laws, and the ability to reassure my mother, I felt a deep sense of happiness. However, that happiness did not last long. About 3 months after officially marrying Thomas, when I returned from work, my in-laws were sitting on the sofa in the living room. I thought, that's unusual because my in-laws, who had been frequent visitors in the beginning, had been coming less and less recently. Thomas had not yet returned home, and they seemed to have been waiting for me, staring at me as I entered. Hey, you're late. We're tired of waiting. When my father-in-law said this, I had a bad feeling. It was a slightly aggressive tone that had never been directed at me before. Really, coming home this late even though you're a wife, what a luxury. Have we spoiled you so much that you've become arrogant? I couldn't hide my surprise at these words. They were completely different from the kind words my mother-in-law had previously spoken. Moreover, it was just past 5 p.m., so it wasn't even that late. I couldn't understand why she would say such a thing. What are you dawdling for? Come here right now. We have something important to discuss. Following my mother-in-law's directive, I attempted to sit on an empty spot on the sofa. Hey, who gave you permission to sit? A wife isn't allowed to sit like that. I was scolded for standing and yelled at for trying to sit. I was utterly confused. In front of a bewildered me, my mother-in-law pointed to a piece of paper on the table and said, "For now, could you sign this?" Looking at the paper, I was shocked once again. It was unmistakably a divorce form. What? A divorce form? Why? We just got married. My mind was filled with question marks. I couldn't simply reply okay to the demand to just sign the papers. As I grew increasingly confused, my mother-in-law said, "It's good that you're such a feather-brained daughter-in-law. It was easy to deceive you with our acting. Where did you think such generous in-laws existed? Be happy that you got to enjoy a little bit of happiness. Playing a good mother-in-law is tiring." She then sat down on the sofa and lit a cigarette. I was witnessing a side of my mother-in-law I had never seen before. Even when I was told it was all an act, I couldn't quite believe it. I had never imagined that the kindness and fun times of the past few months were all a performance. As I struggled to understand, my father-in-law said irritably, "Get it through your head already. You're really stupid. It was all an act." The relatives always laughed at Thomas, saying he could never get married. They said they'd give him $10,000 if he managed to get married, so we married him off. Everyone was so surprised. We got the $10,000 and ideally, we wouldn't need you anymore. My father-in-law explained that they were told they might have to return the money to the relatives if they divorced too soon, so they planned to keep the marriage going for the time being. Why they were trying to get me to sign a divorce form was beyond me. The divorce form is just in case. If it weren't for the financial issues, I'd want to divorce you right away. I don't want to leave my beloved son with such a foolish daughter-in-law. Does Thomas know about this? Is he also part of this act? While I was trying to calm down and think, my mother-in-law pushed the divorce form towards me. Looking closely, Thomas's name was already filled in. Did he write it himself? "Paula, if you understand, then don't just stand there, start preparing dinner. Thomas will be home soon. Make sure you prepare enough for us too. Don't be lazy. Treat us like your real family, will you?" Laughs. My mother-in-law laughed maliciously while smoking her cigarette. "I want a thick steak tonight. If we don't have any, go out and buy some right away." My father-in-law commanded, almost as if chasing away an animal. Unable to retort, I left the living room, clutching the divorce form and shoving it into my pocket. The kind in-laws I knew before were just an illusion. When I realized that the past 3 months of happiness had all been just an illusion, my heart filled with sadness and frustration. Wiping away tears, I left the house to go shopping. Thomas returned home while I was cooking the thick cuts of meat I had bought, which his parents were eating. "Thomas, welcome back. Paula has really outdone herself, making us eat such cheap meat. This is why children raised by single mothers are no good. They have no sense of taste." While complaining, my mother-in-law continued eating the meat. Even though she called it cheap, for me, it was quite expensive. It felt like they were belittling my mother, and it upset me. While I was feeling conflicted, Thomas kindly said in his usual gentle tone, "Hey, that looks delicious. Paula, can I have some too?" Seeing my visibly relieved expression, Thomas looked back at me curiously. My mother-in-law silently gave me a look that seemed to say, "Don't say anything unnecessary." I decided to wait and see a little longer, and began to cook meat for Thomas. Although I was relieved that Thomas seemed his usual self, knowing the true nature of his parents now made future interactions with them dreadfully depressing. Did he really marry me just for financial reasons? At the very least, I wanted to believe that Thomas genuinely chose me. That's when I remembered the divorce form I had stuffed in my pocket. Did Thomas really fill it out himself? I hadn't confirmed it yet, but considering the situation, It's possible that one of his parents had filled it in. If Thomas was unaware, that divorce form should be invalid. If that's the case, it might even lead to legal issues. Why are his parents so desperate to see us divorced? I understand that it might be hard for them to let go of their son, but Thomas is no longer a child. There will come a time when he must leave his parents' home, and if we continue to live together, we might eventually have children. When that time comes, perhaps his parents will change their minds. Also, if I can prove myself as a capable daughter-in-law, they might come to accept me. Thinking this, a glimmer of hope began to appear in my heart. "All right, I'll try a little harder," I murmured quietly as I cooked the meat for Thomas. However, after that day, the attitude of my in-laws continued to deteriorate. I had continued working after getting married but had adjusted my hours to be shorter. My in-laws started timing their visits to be just before Thomas came home, ensuring they had a few hours at our place. Thomas trusted his parents, so they had a key to our house. This allowed them free access to come and go as they pleased. Honestly, their frequent visits were troubling. However, I don't own anything expensive, and I always carry my valuables with me, so I reluctantly allowed them to enter. Every time they visited, they would complain, "How rude of you to make our son live in such a small, old apartment. This place feels steeped in poverty. Don't you know there are much nicer houses out there? It's pathetic being born poor, isn't it? I wish we had a prettier daughter-in-law. Looking at you doesn't provide any relief to the eyes." They would grumble about the apartment and me. "We live in this apartment because it fits our financial situation. Thomas's income isn't as high as his parents think. Even combined with mine, it's just enough for us to live a decent life." However, due to his pride, Thomas hasn't been able to disclose this to his parents. Not only do his parents frequently complain about me, but they also use me as an errand runner. On weekends, they force me to clean their house and tend their garden, insisting, "Don't complain, it's a daughter-in-law's duty." I feel more like a servant than a daughter-in-law. Despite this, driven by a desire to be accepted by them, I had willingly taken on any chore they had asked of me. There were many times I wanted to complain to Thomas, but since these were important people to him, I kept my feelings to myself. This situation had been ongoing for several months. It was almost a year since Thomas and I got married, but his parents' attitude hadn't changed. To them, I was merely a servant. Our house wasn't far from his parents, and they made unreasonable demands at all hours, early in the morning or late at night. Often, these tasks, like changing a light bulb or removing a bug from the house, were things they could easily do themselves. If I showed even a hint of displeasure, they would threaten and say, "We're old. What if we get hurt doing these things? If we get injured, we'll scream that the daughter-in-law abused us," displaying a childish and shallow attitude. To avoid escalating the issue, I just quietly complied with their demands. Thomas was my only support, but the time he spent at home had significantly decreased since the harassment from his parents began a few months ago. He said it's because his responsibilities at work had increased, leading to more business trips and overtime. "I'm sorry I have to leave the house so often. Please take care of Mom and Dad," Thomas told me before leaving. Seeing this as an opportunity, his parents had become even more demanding. Lately, they also started to ask for money more frequently. Both of his parents took early retirement and were now unemployed. Perhaps their boredom was the reason for this? However, the fact that his parents were unemployed and me giving them money were separate issues. Since they retired early, they should have received a retirement payout, and they should be receiving a pension. Additionally, they received money from relatives when we got married. Despite that, I had given them money several times, saying just this time. Having been single for a long time, I managed to save a considerable amount, which was more than most women my age. I saved this money for future expenses. Deciding to give money to my in-laws from our living expenses was not something I could decide alone. I told Thomas that we need to discuss it if we are to give them money regularly. However, my mother-in-law objected. "Why do you need to consult Thomas? Just give us the money you earned. Your money belongs to us. Hand it over without complaining." And she tried to forcibly take my wallet. Shocked and frightened by this unreasonable behavior, I decided to talk to Thomas about the situation. That day, Thomas said he had to work overtime and didn't get home until after 1 a.m. I wondered if there really was a workplace that required such late hours. Though I had my doubts, opportunities to talk with the busy Thomas were rare. It was late at night, but since I finally had a chance to talk, I opened up about the financial demands from his parents. "I'd like to help if we could afford it, but it's tough right now, isn't it? Could you maybe talk to your mom about it?" I suggested. Unexpectedly, Thomas immediately responded, "What? Why not just give them the money? Just give them all of your income. What's there to worry about?" His reply was as if my concerns were unreasonable, almost as if it was obvious to do so. He said it kindly, but I couldn't understand the meaning. If I give my whole salary to your parents, what will happen to us? We need to pay rent and utility bills, right?" I explained the obvious to him. As far as I know, Thomas's salary was much lower than mine, even with my reduced hours. Living on his income alone would be very difficult. Thomas looked slightly displeased and said to me, "I know about the utility bills. If we run short on living expenses, just take a loan from a consumer finance company. Of course, it should be in your name since we're giving your salary to my parents. You should take responsibility for it. Make sure the debt is in your name. It's got nothing to do with me." His words seemed logical on the surface, but were actually incomprehensible. Did Thomas really think that way? I couldn't feel the kindness I knew from him in his words last night. Eventually, Thomas yawned deeply and said, "I have to get up early tomorrow, so I'm going to bed now." And he went to bed. I spent the whole night on the sofa in the living room, unable to sleep. The next morning, I left the house before Thomas woke up. Since I had some time before work, I decided to spend it at a nearby cafe. I had prepared a simple breakfast for Thomas, so there shouldn't be any problem for him to eat. Honestly, I didn't want to see his face. I couldn't believe the words he had said last night. He spoke so calmly, it made me doubt myself. I couldn't understand what Thomas was thinking, and I felt anxious about what would happen next. We need to have a proper discussion. I left the house this morning as if I was running away, but I resolved to face my relationship with Thomas squarely. Though I was sleepy from lack of sleep, flipping this mental switch helped me focus on work. After leaving the cafe, I went to the office and spent the day there. I managed to finish my work and thought about what to say in the upcoming discussion with Thomas as I hurried home. I'm not good at expressing myself, so I wanted to organize my thoughts in advance. I hoped that my in-laws wouldn't come over tonight. Their presence tended to complicate things. When I reached the apartment and tried to unlock the door, something fell off. The door was already unlocked. My in-laws might have already arrived. I intended to ask them to leave today, and opened the door. Instead of my in-laws, I saw unfamiliar shoes in the entryway. They were Thomas's shoes. He usually came home later than me or had to work late into the night, but it seemed he had come home early today. With a heavy heart, I took off my shoes and headed toward the living room. From there, I could hear Thomas and his parents chatting happily. They seemed to be enjoying themselves with drinks. Thomas's voice sounded cheerier than usual as he said, "A simple-minded wife is the best. From now on, I'll be giving all of Paula's salary to you, Mom and Dad. Paula just accepts whatever I say." Hearing this, his parents laughed loudly. Children from poor families will believe anything if you're just a bit kind to them. She still thinks you are a kind husband, which is funny. You're the best at acting." I stood frozen, overwhelmed by despair. Everything went dark before my eyes, and I staggered but managed to steady myself. Indeed, the kind Thomas I thought I knew was also an illusion. It was tough finding a suitable woman at the matchmaking party. I wanted someone quiet, not used to men, and obedient. Even though I would get money from the relatives, I didn't want to marry an ugly woman. Hearing this, I wanted to block my ears, unable to bear the words I was hearing. Now that a year has passed since our marriage, no one will complain if you get divorced soon. Where's the divorce form you wrote before? Well, if it's not here, you can just write it again. Next time, pick a woman with a decent face. That poor face made even the food taste bad," said his father, and Thomas and his mother burst into laughter again. If only she had been wealthy, at least someone who wouldn't live in such a cheap apartment. My heart pounded violently. My mind went blank, and tears flowed uncontrollably. The divorce form that my mother-in-law had once thrust at me had indeed been written by Thomas. I had believed that marriage would bring me happiness, yet why did I have to suffer like this? From the beginning, his parents never intended to accept me as family. Thomas was the same. He might have been ridiculed by his relatives, but he married me for prestige and money. There were times I felt happy and thought I had a warm family, but all of that was just an act, an illusion. Since her mother is a single mom and poor, she won't easily agree if I bring up divorce. If that happens, we'll just say Paula was bullying you, Mom and Dad, and get divorced, blaming it on her, and claiming the property settlement. Make sure you put on a great act then, Thomas said, chuckling. Responding as if on cue, his mother said, "Leave the acting to me." Playing a mother-in-law exhausted from being bullied? Easy as pie, as she laughed heartily. I felt as though all emotion was draining from my heart. Beyond the door were devils disguised as family. I felt nothing for these devils. I just wished that they would go to hell. Without entering the living room, I left the house. I decided to spend the night at a friend's place, someone I had gone to the matchmaking party with before. My friend welcomed me warmly, a stark contrast to the demonic nature of my mother-in-law. Meeting Thomas at a place where I was supposed to find happiness may have been my mistake. Was it fun for them to deceive someone like me, a naive and foolish woman in her 40s who mistook their feigned kindness for affection? They used me like a slave, demanding money. Had they ever seen such lowly figures reflected in the mirror? Their laughter sounded like the loud cackles of demons. I hope they continue laughing as they go to hell. I hope they suffer greatly. I will never forgive them. The next morning, I left my friend's place and went straight to work. Thomas showed no reaction to the fact that I didn't come home last night. No calls, no messages. Perhaps he's always been that kind of person. I just hadn't realized it, because there had never been a night when I didn't come home. It took a year, but I'm glad I learned the truth. Now that I know that Thomas and his parents are the worst kind of people, I can deal with them without mercy. After finishing my work that day, I returned to the apartment as if nothing had happened. The living room was still cluttered with the bottles and cans from their drinking the night before, along with bags of snacks and piles of leftover food. I cleaned up quietly, feeling nothing. Thomas didn't come home until after 11 p.m. Without saying anything, I simply headed to my room. The next evening, when my in-laws came over and found me, they demanded as if they had spotted prey, "Hey, we want pizza today. Order from that expensive place near the station, and you pay for it. Your money is already family money." Looking at my mother-in-law's greedy expression, I thought to myself, what a greedy and repulsive face. Even after ordering the pizza, they said, Hey, don't you dare eat any. You eating it would ruin the taste of the pizza. If the taste of the pizza feels off, perhaps it's your taste that's the issue, I thought to myself, but I didn't voice this. I certainly didn't want to look at my wrinkled, unclean father-in-law's face either. Paula, could you leave us alone? We want to eat just as a family today, Thomas said with a sinister smile. He might still think I'm fooled by his act. Unfortunately for him, I knew everything. It felt like continuing to participate in a prank after the secret was out. Moreover, it was clear they were excluding me by saying just the family. I returned to my room without a word. A month had passed since then. Thomas continued to come home late last month, and his parents kept up their verbal abuse, unchanged. Recently, the word divorce started coming up frequently from them. Really, you are so insensitive and clueless. Can you hurry up and proceed with the divorce from Thomas? It seemed Thomas was about to put into action the daughter-in-law bullying the in-laws plan he had talked about before. Paula, you said something terrible, and it made my mom cry. I care about my mom, so if you can't get along with her, I seriously think we should consider divorcing. There's no way that mother-in-law cried because of me. Thomas casually lied about such clear falsehoods. I was fed up with it. It seemed that Thomas and his parents were also spreading rumors of daughter-in-law bullying the in-laws around the neighborhood. Such a despicable family. They would do well to use that energy for something more constructive. With the situation potentially affecting the neighbors, I looked up and saw that the moon had risen. Tonight the moon was unusually red, often considered an ominous sign. Perhaps it was the perfect night to banish demons. That night, Thomas and his parents were enjoying drinks in the living room. I decided to interrupt boldly. What do you want? We're enjoying family time right now. Don't disturb us. My father-in-law tried to brush me off, but I fixed him with a stern look. He flinched for a moment, which I did not miss. Excuse the interruption. I just wanted to let you know that I'll be moving out tomorrow. The moment I mentioned moving out, the expressions on all three of their faces changed dramatically. My mother-in-law mocked. So you finally decided to leave, huh? I bet you can't afford anything better though. Where are you going? To a cardboard box. Thomas and my father-in-law laughed, and even my mother-in-law chuckled. I couldn't understand what they found so amusing and just watched them laugh. After a pause with tears welling up, my mother-in-law asked again, "So what kind of shabby apartment are you moving to?" I answered calmly, "Actually, it's a new apartment in front of the station. It's a 4-bedroom, much bigger than here." Thomas and his parents couldn't hide their surprise at my response. "Really? An apartment near the station? But those are expensive to buy." Thomas looked at me, puzzled. "I've been saving to buy a home since before I was married. I decided to use that money now," I said brightly. Thomas began to mutter to himself, seemingly in thought. "Is that so? Okay, got it. Ashem, 4-bedroom. Having delivered my news to them, I couldn't wait to leave this house." Despite their initial disbelief and mocking, revealing my independence and ability to move on without them likely altered their perception. I felt a mix of relief and vindication knowing I was leaving this toxic environment behind. Now, I look forward to starting anew in a place of my own, free from deceit and manipulation. I had very few belongings, so I could move out immediately. As I was about to stand up, Thomas suddenly raised his voice. "Paula, I understand how you feel now. Okay, I've decided. From tomorrow on, we as a family will live together." He looked at me triumphantly for some reason. I had somehow anticipated that he would suggest this. Pretending to be oblivious, I responded to Thomas. "So, you and your parents will live together in this apartment. That's a good idea. Your parents seem to like it here, and they've always wanted to stay." At my words, Thomas frowned and objected. "What? No way we're going to live in this old apartment. We're moving to the new 4-bedroom apartment near the station too." Hearing this, his parents expressed their excitement and joy. "That's wonderful. A brand new apartment. We should start preparing to move right away. Let poor Paula stay in this old apartment. The new 4-bedroom apartment will be just for us. Since it's your house, make sure you pay the rent." Thomas and his parents ignored me and excitedly discussed their plans. Truly greedy and shabby people. No, they were downright demonic. I asked calmly while maintaining my composure. "Wait, why would all of you live in my apartment?" Caught off guard by my calmness, they paused for a moment. "Why? You're my wife, aren't you? It's only natural for us to live in the new apartment you got." I sighed deeply. To think that these were the same people who had always talked about divorce. It's always the same pattern. They only bring up the word daughter-in-law when it suits them. Since you married into this family, you should take care of us, including finances, and a place to live. Because you are the daughter-in-law. I responded calmly to my mother-in-law's rude remarks. "What? I'm not married, though." All three of them displayed expressions of surprise when I made my declaration. All three looked like deer caught in headlights, totally dumbstruck. What? What? I didn't say anything wrong. What I said was the truth. As I mentioned, I am currently single. I am no longer Thomas's wife or anything of the sort. Therefore, I no longer need or am obligated to live with you all. I clearly stated my position to the three stunned devils. They deceive people with their insensitive acts and even threaten my peaceful life. People like them are better suited for a house made of cardboard. What are you saying? I won't accept divorce. We're going to live in the 4-bedroom apartment. Their refusal to accept the divorce was solely to live in the new apartment, showing how narrow-minded they were. It's embarrassing to think that such a person was my husband for a year. I received the divorce form that you wrote from your mother quite a while ago. I signed and submitted it. It seems you and your parents also wanted the divorce, so I just proceeded with it. The divorce is already finalized, so please rest assured. Upon hearing this, Thomas directed an angry glare at his mother. In response, his mother also became furious. "What? You wanted the divorce too? It was all part of the plan to get money from the relatives by acting. You even prepared a script." While shouting these words in anger, Thomas inadvertently revealed more about the family's act. "It was you who accidentally spilled that it was all an act, wasn't it? You should have just played the kind mother-in-law until the end. That's why you didn't make it as actors." Suddenly caught in the conversation, my father-in-law joined in. "I quit acting for your sake. We prioritized family because you were born. You don't understand that, you foolish son." As this heated exchange continued, I decided to interrupt their argument. "Excuse me for interrupting while you're all so engaged, but I have a bit of news. I happened to stop by the relative's place we visited before, since I was in the area for work recently. At the time, the relative's reaction was very striking. They were shocked that Thomas was getting married. When I casually asked about it during my visit, I received a surprising answer. Thomas getting married? I couldn't imagine that. Paula, did you know that Thomas has never held a proper job? Oh, you didn't know? The relative kindly explained the situation. Since graduating from university, Thomas has been going to the casino almost every day. Sometimes he's there from morning till evening. His parents also love the casino, and the whole family has early drink sessions when they win. Oh, you thought he's been working overtime because he's in a responsible position at his company? That could be because he's trying out new machines or visiting new casinos far away. It's terrible. Can't imagine that such a person could be married. Hearing this, all the contradictions were resolved. There were times I returned home to find the three of them drinking together, which must have been them celebrating their winnings. My in-laws were siphoning off my income to fund their casino habits. I had always thought that Thomas was in a low-paying job. This was because I only received a small contribution of about $500 per month from him for living expenses, and I covered most of our expenses with my salary. Considering his pride, I had never said anything, but it turns out there was no pride to consider. He was just addicted to gambling. I am grateful to the relatives for providing me with such crucial information. Thus, I made sure to share the truth with them as well, that this marriage was entirely fabricated and that I was married for financial reasons. The relatives were very angry and said they would demand the immediate return of any money they had paid. Hearing this, Thomas and his parents turned pale with shock. After a while, the fiery-tempered mother-in-law attempted to retort. However, I continued speaking. By the way, about the rumors of daughter-in-law abusing the in-laws that you've spread around the neighborhood, it turns out that nobody actually believed those stories. In fact, they felt uncomfortable when hearing such rumors were being spread. Your voices berating me were well known around the neighborhood. I said this with a smile. My mother-in-law, trying to argue, was at a loss for words once again. Feeling a sense of satisfaction, I decided to use this moment to bring up even more important matters. There's something even more important we need to discuss. Although I expect to hear from my lawyer soon, I'll give you an overview now. Thomas, you will be facing claims for a division of assets based on your infidelity. Upon hearing my words, Thomas shuddered in surprise. He must have thought he would never be caught. I heard from a friend who was with us at the matchmaking party. Despite being married, you've been showing up at various matchmaking events almost every day. She even took pictures of you going to a hotel with a woman you met there. While you're trying to push forward with our divorce, you're also looking for your next partner. Your approach is quite careless, isn't it? I've already informed the organizers of the parties that you are married, so you can expect a significant penalty. Upon hearing this, Thomas collapsed to the floor. He held his head, muttering in panic, "What a foolish sight. Why would you make such a mistake? I told you to do it without getting caught." His mother said coldly, "By the way, mother-in-law, father-in-law, I will be seeking compensation from you as well." At this, his parents visibly shook. "Why would you do that? We did everything to make you family. We married our precious son to you, who came from a poor family. Instead of being grateful, you're demanding money from us. That's unreasonable." His father yelled furiously. Still that much energy left? His loud voice was likely heard throughout the neighborhood. It's surprising to hear my father-in-law use the word unreasonable, especially when he himself had taken so many unreasonable actions. On a friend's advice, I had a voice recorder installed in the room for the past month. Your verbal abuse towards me might be legally problematic. I have ample evidence for charges like insult, defamation, and threats. My lawyer will explain the details. Also, recording these conversations is not illegal, so you cannot contest it. Upon hearing this explanation, my father-in-law finally quieted down. In the end, they were just greedy, facade-maintaining gambling addicts. It seems they've run out of vocabulary to argue against me. As I was about to leave the room, Thomas muttered in a faint voice, "Division. What about the division of property? Isn't half of that apartment mine? It's mine, right?" This was Thomas's last attempt. It's commendable that he thought of the term division of property. Unfortunately, I bought that apartment with the savings I had before when I was still single. Plus, I didn't buy it with our life together in mind. So it doesn't qualify for division of assets. You should give up." Thomas seemed to revive momentarily, but then fell silent again. Both my father and mother-in-law slumped down on the sofa, crestfallen. I am grateful for the brief time we spent as a warm family. That's why the shock was so great when I found out everything was a lie. Also, about the poor single mother you keep mentioning, would you mind correcting that? After the divorce, my mother worked hard and climbed up to become the president of a company. She's still busy and seems very happy, and she is my pride. I plan to live with her in the new apartment. With this, I severed ties with this family. From now on, I intend to thoroughly enjoy the time with my beloved mother, which I couldn't fully experience in my childhood. The room had become completely dark, probably because the light bulb had burned out. Well, it doesn't matter anymore. The contract for this apartment will probably be terminated, and the rest I leave to Thomas. He's an adult, after all. Without any sentimentality, I left the three of them in the apartment and walked away. I headed straight to the new apartment where my new life would begin. Indeed, the higher floors are the best. The breeze feels so nice. I watched my mother happily playing on the balcony in the morning as I grounded coffee beans. Both me and my mother like our new apartment. It's comfortable and we feel at home. There's a concierge at the entrance, and the security is excellent, which reassures us. I was a bit worried that my former in-laws might suddenly appear, but it seems they didn't have the courage to step foot here. According to a friend, Thomas has been banned from almost all the matchmaking parties in this area. It's unfortunate for him, but I had hoped for more severe penalties. In the end, it looks like they have started living together in that old apartment. The house where his parents used to live was evicted due to rent arrears. The apartment was in my name. But I explained the situation to the landlord and had it changed to Thomas' name. They couldn't rent another property with Toma, being unemployed and without an income, but they avoided homelessness thanks to the landlord's kindness. Rumor has it that Thomas and his parents have started working. Thomas, in particular, because he lacks specific skills, is doing simple manual labor. Of course, their income is modest. Currently, through my lawyer, I am demanding compensation from them. It hasn't been long since the claim was made, and whether they will pay properly in the future is uncertain. There may also be times when they succumb to the temptation of the casino. However, I intend to ensure they continue to fulfill their responsibilities. Meanwhile, my mother continued to enjoy the fresh breeze on the balcony. "Mom, the coffee is ready. You said you had a meeting this morning, right?" As I placed her mug on the table and told her this, she looked at me with a pleased smile. "Haha. It's truly wonderful to be with family." I felt the same way. After taking a sip of her coffee, my mother said with a gentle smile, "It's very delicious.